Minister Narendra Modi and Chinese President Xi Jinping had on the sidelines of the BRICS summit. That informal conversation, a lot of political reactions have been coming in. The latest one, amid border standoff, top government sources tell CNN News 18 that after the Galwan incident, India's mega infrastructure push along the LAC, that entire task has been going on. The idea was to reduce the infrastructural differential between the two countries, especially the development projects along the LAC, including the construction of bridges, roads, tunnels, helipads and other essential infrastructure to facilitate the smooth movement of troops. Similar efforts have been undertaken in Arunachal Pradesh and Sikkim as well. Several large-scale projects, road projects are currently under construction. By 2026, there will be an alternate connectivity route to the western side of Ladakh and also the Zanskar Valley directly from Manali. In March, the Government of India established a committee to oversee development activities around the LAC. The supervision of this initiative was entrusted to the top secretaries from all relevant ministries as well. We'll try and connect with my colleague, our managing editor Anand Narasimhan, who will tell us more about the story. But building infrastructure is something that India follows as a parallel strategy, a counter to the Chinese, which have been using creation of infrastructure as a feature of the national security policy. Whether it's the Belt and Road Initiative, which they have used for the relatively poorer countries and put them into a debt trap along the line of actual control, whether it's around the Arunachal Pradesh area or towards the Ladakh side. There has been a lot of efforts from the side of the Chinese to ramp up the infrastructure. In fact, building infra was their technique and their strategy even in the autonomous region of Tibet as well, and India now preparing for a befitting response on this. Development of projects, development of infrastructure is a medium to long-term strategy that any nation needs to follow. India has been on this path for the last 7 to 8 years, and it has only escalated, it has only increased its efforts in the last 2 to 3 years, ever since we have seen that escalation of sorts. Let me see if Anand is with us on the broadcast to give us more details and perspective on the story as to what exactly is it that the Indian side is planning. Under the budgetary allocation, there is a special budget which is allocated to the northeastern projects, and of course northeast is important not just from the point of view of national security but from internal security as well. Ladakh is another region where India is very closely eyeing the infra projects. Anand Narasimhan with us on the broadcast. Anand, please give us more details.
Thanks, Anusha, and our group editor security, Manoj Gupta, getting us these details. And we had reported something on the sidelines ahead of the 19th round of conversations also on news18.com, where we had said that China itself is showing an inclination. Top sources within the government are telling us that China itself is showing an inclination to resolve the issue, the standoff along the LAC, because the cost of continuing to mount and place their PLA soldiers at those heights and to also build this kind of infrastructure along the long borders is coming to be quite heavy for the PLA, especially at a time when they find themselves with increasing amount of activity in Taiwan and in the South China Sea. So they are not in a position to open up and to keep two fronts active and two different corners of a large nation like China. The other thing is the economic crisis that China is bearing the brunt of, and it's looming quite large within, which is also hurting them because their pockets are getting empty. A lot of their projects are stalled and they are bleeding money at a time where China is hugely unpopular, not just in Southeast Asia and the ASEAN region, but also the world over. Europe is turning its back. African nations are moving away. Greece, where Prime Minister Narendra Modi today has borne the brunt of China's lopsided economic policy or the economic wolfishness that it's shown. Sri Lanka is a case in point. There are many other nations, and the world is waking up to China's hegemonistic tendencies and how they have used economy or economics to try and push their comprehensive national power and also to turn nations which were thriving into vassal states with their trade strategy. So there is a lot of bad press for China, there is a lot of bad sentiment for China, and right now the CCP leadership and the PLA can ill afford any further negativity to be mounted around them. The growing proximity with India and the United States, long pending disputes at the WTO being resolved. 6 out of the 7 disputes are resolved. The 7th dispute is almost being thrashed out. The never before kind of proximity that is being seen between these two nations. The US trying to wean itself away and move away from Pakistan, and the Pak-China nexus also bleeding China with the CPEC not going anywhere. A lot of these issues are also playing in China's mind. China has declared America as its adversary. America has declared China as its adversary, and that's why in this geopolitical game, the cost of attrition is huge. China supplies to nearly 30% of the goods to the entire world. And if the entire world stops buying from China, who is it going to manufacture for and where is it going to sell? So these are all equations. The entire move to try and look at anywhere but China or China plus one economically is also hurting it. So amidst all of this, in this region, does it really want to pick up a hostility or up the hostility with India is a big question. India is very clear that we are going to be robust along the line of actual control with our borders with China, with our borders with Tibet. We are going to become solid because the PLA presence is there on Tibetan soil, on occupied territory. The connectivity to Zanskar, Ladakh via Manali will be increased deep into the areas where Indian army infrastructure is being built, military infrastructure is being updated. There are secretaries from across the various departments of government who have now been aligned in a committee who are regularly monitoring work in the northeast and also especially around the border areas. And this has been set up in March so that everybody is on the same plane and everybody understands the priority that needs to be accorded to a region and to regions that have for nearly 6.5 decades been ignored. Either by the comments like not a blade of grass grows there as we ceded territory to the Chinese, or with explanations that we are not building infrastructure so that the Chinese can't come in or the PLA cannot come into our territory. Now these kind of explanations are distant memory. What's been taken on today is on a war footing. The alacrity that's being shown to build up infrastructure, be it constructing tunnels, bridges, roads, or additional infrastructure, even connectivity. 4G connectivity in areas like Zanskar and deep areas in Arunachal Pradesh is now being accorded and afforded. Power connectivity is being accorded. So all of these infrastructural developments are also a message to the PLA that we are not going to cede any more territory, nor are we going to be caught napping.
Absolutely.